Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Biodiversity podcast by Teasels. And for this episode, I am sitting down with Chris Bridgman of Bridgman Bridgman. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Hi, Daniel. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for inviting me along.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you. So, Chris, we've known each other off and on for the last few years. But for the uninitiated, do you want to just give the listeners a brief introduction to yourself and tell us a bit more about the great work you do at Bridgman Bridgman?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. So my name is Chris Bridgman. I'm a partner of Bridgman Bridgman. So we started as a landscape company 16 years ago. Our careers, which is myself and my dad, Neil, our careers have always been in horticulture. 16 years ago, as I say, we set up a partnership to run a commercial landscape company. And then in 2009, which is really exciting, we were given the opportunity to do our first ever green roof in Brighton. I'll be quite honest with you, Daniel, I'd never heard of a green roof then, but it sounded cool. And I thought, yeah, I'll give that a go. Why not? Being in the early years of business, it was always never say no, just keep saying yes. And
Exactly.
and it really shaped the way of our future. That's now all we do. We only do green roof and roof garden installation and maintenance, but also training as well now. So we've actually dropped the landscape services. So the reason being the market is growing so rapidly in the UK. And we were sort of there from a fairly early stage. So that's where we're at the moment.
So you mentioned we were chatting a couple of weeks ago. So correct me if I'm wrong. The green roof industry is growing. Is it 17% per annum?
Yes, 17.5% a year on average. It's growing, which is a huge amount for any industry.
Wow. So I guess the next question is, what are the drivers behind that?
Okay, well, yeah, that's a really good question. And pre-COVID, it was all to do with planning. So, planning authorities would request more green roofs were included in developments. Post-COVID and sort of during COVID, it's all about building back greener and, how important green spaces are. So my concern when COVID came around was, we would lose the climate message. We would forget, where we need to be environmentally.
Yeah.
But fantastically, it's almost been accelerated, and we've seen such a huge amount of forward planning orders for green roofs. The business has stayed very busy throughout the whole pandemic, which is good, very good. Obviously, there's issues around, is it safe? Do we want to be putting people out to work during a pandemic? So there was lots of, people that didn't want to work or felt uncomfortable could use the furlough scheme. But on the whole, working safely, we've remained really, really busy throughout. So, really pleased that we haven't lost our sight on the climate emergency.
And that's great that you say that, because I think that green roofs, although a lot of people can't see them, they are vitally important. They're a vitally important component of trying to address this climate emergency. Do you want to give us a bit of a background that how green roofs can do that? Because in the past we've chatted about it, but it'd be really nice to see, or really nice to hear, some of your sort of case studies of some of the roofs that you guys have worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose we can, if we talk a bit about the history of green roofs, they're not new. I mean, these have been going on for thousands of years. Traditional sod roofs are green roofs. That was for insulation. So obviously now green roofs still insulate. In hotter climates where the asphalt would melt under the rays of the sun, they tried to put sand layers on the roof to try and sort of protect the roof, the waterproof layer. And in time they became vegetated. So, from that, we learned that the green roof is actually protecting the waterproof layer.
Yeah.
And we know that, in fact, a green roof can increase the lifespan of a roof by up to two or three times. So a little bit more costly during installation, and building the roof, but the longevity of the roof is going to be twice as long. So it's money saving in the future, which is a huge benefit. But more and more now, for biodiversity, rooftops are really important. We can recreate habitats we destroy on the ground by building them on the rooftop.
Yeah. I think it's a point. I think it's a point that John Little made a few podcasts back, where he said, if you think about, we try and establish, habitat on the ground. It's open to vandalism. It's open to disturbance. But but you can have habitat, vegetation on a roof, and it's going to be undisturbed, other than perhaps when you guys come up and sort of maintain it.
Yeah. But you're right, and as John says, it's protected space, which is, where else do you find that? Where else do you get undisturbed habitats and biodiverse areas? You don't. So another great reason for doing this, and also, flood alleviation. We're keeping the water at source. We're keeping it on the rooftops. It's evaporating rather than going into the stormwater drains, which is obviously protecting the cities.
Yeah.
And we're cooling the air. So we're cooling the air around the buildings. It's helping with the urban heat island effect by reducing temperatures. And it's just, I can't, it's really hard, Daniel, to sort of wonder why we haven't been doing this for years in the UK, and why is it taking us so long to catch on?
So that's interesting. So if I can take you back, because you mentioned sort of the brief history of green roofs. Like, we got the sods roofs that were in sort of Scandinavia, and then, as you were talking earlier about the history of green roofs, I was thinking, well, on the continent, they've been doing it, both on green roofs and sort of terrestrial gardens. They're kind of like 20, 30 years ahead, and I kind of think, I guess it's trying to get to the bottom of why we've been so slow on the uptake, because the benefits are still there. I mean, it's only Europe. It's not a million miles away. We can we can get the Eurostar and go over and have a look. So why do you think there's been that lag?
I just think awareness, and I really think that the campaign that Dusty Gedge has sort of, over the last 20 years, he's been campaigning for green roofs, and without that, I'm not sure we would even be this far ahead. I'm not sure the market would be growing at such a pace. It was, Dusty visited Switzerland and came back and introduced green roofs to London, and now we've got 1.5 million square meters of green roof, in the capital, which is huge for us. But if we compare that to Germany, that are installing 10 million square meters every year, that's nothing. We're way behind, and it's again, it's crazy. But I think we're always.
Sorry, can you repeat that? 10 million a year.
10 million square meters a year are installed in Germany each and every year.
So I guess green roofs are enshrined into sort of their psyche, but also definitely their planning regs.
Yeah, I mean, their houses, their industrial developments, everything that can have a green roof generally does have one from the beginning, without, it's not even questioned. It's not a cost issue. It's just a given, really.
Yeah.
And it just shows, although our market in the UK is growing a huge amount every year, the worldwide market is absolutely phenomenal. We're just a very tiny player compared to everyone else.
So again, so you mentioned about Dusty. He brought green roofs to the capital. Now, again, I think that's been, if you like, enshrined into planning law in London with the to the urban greening factor, and that's played a big part in that. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah. And the London plan, it's written into that, where possible green roofs are included. And that's fantastic for London, but for the rest of the UK, I think they're, with the metro mayors, they're now trying to adopt those plans and better them. So straight away, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, they're looking to really increase their green roof stock and make it, a big part of forward vision and planning.
Yeah.
Scotland's always been very big. Glasgow and Edinburgh have been ahead of the curve, as have Sheffield, but everything in between that's been very sort of minimal and, not driven by planning departments. It's just down to individual architects and people that know about them, really. And, sometimes they're designed, but then value engineered out, which means the cost is too much, so they take them out. But, more and more we see that they're becoming a huge feature of the development. So they're not being taken out. The cost is not an issue.
And I think that it's something that's come up in previous podcasts where, if green roofs are considered from minute one, day one, then they're built into the structure rather than the structure's built and then somebody has a brainwave to, 2 weeks before, panning in the planning application, and it's an afterthought. But if you can plan them from minute one, day one, the structure underneath the green roof is not necessarily a massive increment in cost.
No, exactly. And as you just said, it's sort of design and think about what green roof you want from the outset, and then design the building accordingly. It's the best green roofs are the deeper depth of substrates, which is the growing medium, as you know. And the risk we run, or the risk is that, as you said, it's a last minute thing, and all of a sudden, actually we can only just put a basic sedum roof on because we didn't think about it soon enough, which sedum has their own merits, but the best green roofs that we can be installing are biodiverse roofs that are deeper, more species can grow on it, and it's more beneficial for biodiversity. So the deeper the better, really. And it's that conversation to be had with the green roof designer and the structural engineer in the early stages, which will give you the most sustainable green roof you can get.
So, Chris, you just were mentioning about sedum mats, and you mentioned earlier about biodiverse green roofs. But I think it's really worth discussing now what a green roof actually is, because I believe there's a large part of sort of the construction industry and perhaps general public view that a green roof is just a sedum mat. Now, could you just give us a breakdown of the different types of green roofs, their sort of pros, their cons, and perhaps their application in the for a scheme?
Sure. So, as you know, Daniel, all of the green roofs in the UK aspire to follow the GROW code, which is the Green Roof Organisation. So it's a trade body in the UK made up of suppliers, contractors, and manufacturers of green roof systems that have all come together to devise a code of good practice in green roofing. The brand new code is about to launch this year on World Green Roof Day, and basically within that it will define green roofs as three basic different types. You've got your extensive roof, which, as you said earlier, the sedum blanket is a common extensive roof. It's the lightest of the green roof systems, where you'll have a protection layer to protect the waterproofing, drainage and reservoir layer, filter fleece, growing medium, and then a sedum blanket. So that's your extensive roof. Probably fully saturated weight, including a snow load, you're looking around 120 kilograms per square meter. So traditionally, a lot of roofs are sort of commercial roofs, flat roofs on office blocks, just had a layer of gravel over them or slabs. Basically, the extensive roof almost mirrors that in terms of weight loading. So basically, if you've got a gravel roof, you can potentially have a green roof without a lot of structural enhancement.
Yeah.
The next stage is the biodiverse roof, which is a deeper depth of growing medium. So you're going to be able to grow more species in it. It's going to be able to support more species of wildflower.
Yeah.
Also more sort of interest in planting rather than just a seed and blanket. So you can have bulbs, and you can have different potted, fairly small P9 plants in. That sort of stuff that's allowed to mature, isn't just a blanket of vegetation. It's allowed to mature over time. These can actually be combined with solar panels. So you get a biosolar roof where you have great vegetation around the solar panels, which actually cools the air temperature and produces more power through the panels. It's also great for creating small microclimates for different types of wildflower and vegetation. So it's really interesting, and the two go together.
It's such a big win-win, that, isn't it? I mean, I saw, not sure if you were there, but when Gary Grant took us up to on the roof of one of the buildings on the Olympic Park a couple of years ago, it just seemed like a massive win-win. It was, again, you had the solar panel, which is that should be a win, but like you say, you had all that vegetation, and then, like you just mentioned, that nuance of different microclimates, even within a meter of each other.
So the other beauty of the solar panel and green roof combined is that the green roof is actually ballasting the framework of the solar panel. So you don't have to drill into your roof or penetrate the roof deck to have the panels in place, because it's all loose laid above, and the green roof is actually holding it all in place. So a fantastic retrofit, opportunity as well.
And I bet, as you're saying it, I bet let's get that message out there to any sort of structural engineer or roofing contractor. You don't have to get a drill out. There's no way you're going to puncture the liner. So So go on.
I suppose. Sorry. Then we move on to the intensive roof, which, as you say, is almost your garden on the rooftop, sort of urban rooftop farms. It's basically you can, if the structure allows, have what you have on the ground on a rooftop. So that's classed as your intensive green roof or roof garden.
And there's quite a few good examples around London of intensive roof gardens. You've got, is it Cannon Bridge Roof Garden? And as you mentioned, I think is it in Paris? I forget the total square meterage, but the sort of urban farms on rooftops. I forget. It was something daft like like 1,000. But again, urban farms on rooftops is becoming a big thing in Paris, and they made a point of that in the Guardian a few weeks ago. So it's great to see.
Absolutely.
So it's great to see. So then, why do you find that your bog standard sedum mats seem to be the go-to green roofs? What do you think's driving
that? Probably cost a little bit. Probably awareness of what green roofs are available. It's fairly easy to download a sedum specification online and sort of run with that without knowing all the other green roof types that are available to you.
So can I ask, Chris, do you think that is do you think that's what happens, because there is that infrastructure where you can download, tick that box, get that specification, put your letterhead on it, chuck it in, it's just job done, another box ticked? Do you think that's happening a lot?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, because if a planning department says it needs a green roof, then why wouldn't you just go online and find that information and get one that just says green roof? Perhaps the issue is the planning departments need to specify more what what it should be, rather than just green roof. You know, green roof is a very broad term.
Yeah.
And could, you know, a lot of people class that just as a sedum roof, you know, but I think as we go forward, we need to be getting a lot more aware of what's available to us, and realize that the biodiverse ones are much more beneficial in the long run for biodiversity.
So that's interesting. So in terms of guidance, what sort of official guidance is out there for people in planning departments? Like, you know, if you're sitting there, literally for a planner sitting there in your office, where could somebody go to have more of a reference point?
Well, you know, as I mentioned, that the new Grow Code is about to be launched, but the Grow Code has been around for some 16, 17 years now.
Yeah.
There's a lot more emphasis on a sort of you know, making people aware that that's available, you know.
Yeah.
But also we've worked really hard as Grow to develop training courses, and we're working really hard at the moment on an e-learning course. So it's it's a 3-hour online course that any developer, any local council, any individual could go on and learn all about the different types of green roofs, but also they can learn about the steps they need to go through to get the best green roof for their project, basically. So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the time we find, even when we deal with councils and authorities, they say that, oh, we really want a green roof, we love the idea, but our developer says they're a bad idea, and they cause leaks or reel off some of the other misconceptions, and then it's just put to bed. It's, oh, well, we won't do it then, you know. So it's a real issue we've got, that people are being put off by contractors or builders or developers, mainly I think because they're not aware of what a green roof is, and it's out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. So I guess yeah. I mean, so you mentioned earlier about, you know, the sort of myths about green roofs. I mean, is there a sort of top 5 myths that you kind of that you hear, that like it's going to leak or it costs too much? Are there any of those myths that you could perhaps dispel or give your?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so the leakage is a huge one. People say, oh, green roofs cause leaks, but green roofs won't cause a leak. The leak is likely to be there before the green roof went on, and that's quite easily, you know, wrapped up by having leak tests done. So, you know, we test the waterproofing to make sure it is actually waterproof before the green roof goes on.
Yeah.
And then when the green roof does go on, there's absolutely no reason why that green roof will cause the leak, you know, unless there's damage caused by someone digging it up, in effect. So
Yeah.
if you can imagine, we're putting a big buffer on top of the waterproof layer to actually protect it. You know, if there's no green roof and people are just walking on the bare waterproofing itself, it's more likely to get punctured or damaged there, you know, by people just walking across it or treading in something sharp to cause a penetration. So yeah, that's a huge one that we can easily, you know, dispel, that green roofs do not actually cause leaks themselves, because it's all above the waterproofing layer.
Yeah. And then cost as well, because I guess, you know, again, cost always comes up, doesn't it? That's just always the thing. So do you want to just sort of give us a breakdown on cost and sort of weighing up against what a green roof would cost, or against, you know, a non-green roof?
Yeah, of course. So I suppose the easiest way to do it is sort of say a green roof, you know, square meter wise, is likely to cost you between 90 to 150 pound a square meter, you know, rough estimates.
Yeah.
Which is an additional cost to your roof, you know, because the green roof is everything, you know, it's layers above your waterproof. It's above your roof, you know, your roof is there anyway. The green roof just goes above it. So yes, it's more of an expense when you're building or developing, but like I said earlier, Daniel, if it makes your roof last 2 or 3 times as long, you're actually going to save yourself, you know, the cost of replacing that roof twice in its lifetime. So
yeah,
it's more of an initial cost, but long term, it's a huge saving by having a green roof on.
Yeah. And does that message get kind of lost? Because I guess perhaps people are just thinking, well, there's my capital, you know, that's it. They're thinking about the capital and they're not thinking about the ongoing cost.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're working to the budget of constructing, not, you know, the longevity of the building, you know, what it's going to save the end user in the long run. That's not their concern when they're building. So why would they consider that? You know, it's an additional cost at construction phase. So that's why it's often value engineered out, because it's an extra 90 or 150 pounds a square meter. So
yeah. So then we were chatting before the podcast started about, you know, the sort of the drivers of the green roof industry, and you were mentioning how it's quite a product led industry at the moment.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's a lot of the manufacturers, very good manufacturers, you know, have a lot of information available online. So again, it's easier for developers and architects to take those specifications and just drop them straight into the projects, which is good. It's good that information's available, but maybe that, as you said earlier, maybe that's the reason that there's a lot of extensive basic sedum roofs, because they're just quite an easy option to put in, you know. If architects aren't aware of or comfortable with all the other options available to them, you know, it's almost like sedum's the comfort blanket, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
pop a sedum roof on.
Yeah, wouldn't be that comfortable lying on it. It'd be
No.
So, but all joking aside, so so again, we've chatted briefly, you know, in the past about sort of the sort of makeup underneath sedum. But it'd be really interesting to hear from you about, you know, we've talked about, you know, extensive roofs and biodiverse roofs. What are those biodiverse roofs actually growing on?
Well, I mean, you know, as you know, you've got your general build up that you would have of a sedum roof, but then you can be really, you know, you can really do some exciting things like John Little does. I mean, John just does some fantastic projects in using rubble and ceramic waste to create really interesting biodiversity features on roofs, sand piles. So basically, if you've got your, you know, 80 to 150 or 200 millimeters of substrate, it's then great to have a play around with lots of different materials and almost recreate a wasteland, which is the beauty of what John does, you know, because like we said earlier, it's a protected area for wildlife, and they want, you know, let's try and make it as rough and ready as possible, because, you know, that is wild. You know, let's make the substrate as wild as the rest of the environment for them.
And then you were saying that the sort of the sweet spot is 150 mil.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to go any lower than that, because, you know, the lower you go, the less sort of water retention. So the more sort of drought periods and warmer, you know, temperatures that we're getting each year can soon put those plants under stress. So the deeper the substrate really is beneficial for when we get into drought periods, if there's no way of watering or irrigating the roofs. But you know, that shouldn't put people off, because let's imagine a roadside verge. Sometimes that goes completely brown and dead and looks really dead, you know, but as soon as there's a drop of rain, it comes back, and it comes back better. And that's exactly the same as a green roof. And what we do need to be better at is managing, you know, people's perception of wildflower roofs, and, you know, manage their expectations. It's not going to be a poppy field all year round. It's a wild roof. It's going to look dead, and that's not a bad thing. You know, it's natural, but, you know, it's sort of educating people and making them aware of that. And I suppose one thing we've been doing, Daniel, is sort of interpretation panels. So it's like the mowing the roadside verges, isn't it? You know, if you don't mow them, people complain. If you put a sign up to say you're not mowing them because of bees and for wildlife, people say, oh, all right, fair enough. You know,
because it's really interesting. I'm laughing because I was reading on Instagram the other day a guy called councillor there called James Mallender, fantastic guy. And what they're doing at the Suffolk County Council is they're leaving their roadside verges, but they're putting up signage to say, excuse the weeds, we're feeding the bees. So it just flips it from, oh, you're creating a meadow, to you're just making it look messy, just with a bit of advertising, a bit of info, but you're right, it's about education, really, isn't it?
Just explaining to people what you're doing and that it's okay, and there's, when they read that, they're like, fine, yeah, great, that sounds really good.
Yeah,
I love it, but if you didn't, if they just look out onto a dead roof, they think they're looking at a dead roof and something's wrong with it, or it's not performing as it should be. But
so it's quite interesting. So I'm going to give you a big shout out here. So you recently won an award for your roof on the top of IKEA in Greenwich. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, we won the NFRC UK Roofing Award for best green roof.
Fantastic. So I guess you've had a lot of footfall up there. So have you got a lot of you talk about interpretation boards. Were you putting interpretation boards on top of that roof as well?
Yeah, I mean, IKEA is a great example of using all the three types of green roof that we spoke about earlier. So you have got sedum areas, you've got biodiverse areas, you've got urban rooftop farming, and growing beds for community use, which IKEA are really big on bringing schools in to do workshop sessions on the rooftop. But you've got areas for recreation as well, and it's a big part of the IKEA store in that, they could have a bigger store by moving all their green space onto the roof. So it's a clever, very, very clever forward way of thinking. And, all around the world, IKEA's rooftops are generally green, with rooftop gardens. And it's just great that they're so far ahead with that forward thinking and doing that. But it actually works in their favour as well. They're creating areas that people want to come to.
So I guess that makes commercial sense, because they can have more what's the phrase, more floor space to sell their products. And like you say, they're getting footfall into the green roofs, and on the way out, they can buy a flat pack sofa.
Yeah, you can eat your meatballs on the rooftop overlooking the London skyline, for free. Where else would you get that?
Yeah. So so remind us, what was the award again? Who gave you the award?
So it's the National Federation of Roofing Contractors. It's their annual UK Roofing Awards, and we entered IKEA into the green roofing category, but we were also shortlisted with Noah's Ark Children's Hospice in Enfield, which is a biosolar green roof.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful project, a great story. And recently we worked with Emporio Armani. They wanted to introduce some green roofing to the UK as part of their worldwide green project.
Wow.
And they had some issues in getting permission for their London properties. And they sort of came to ourselves and Dusty and said, do you know of any roofs that we could sponsor? And it turns out that Noah's Ark had 2 roofs that could be retrofitted in addition to the green roofs they already had. Wow. And that's another great story. Armani have sponsored green roofs on Noah's Ark, and also they sponsored wildlife cameras that the sick children in the hospice can watch what's going on the roof from their iPads with the wildlife cameras that we've put onto the green roof. So it's just such a great story and use of their space. The hospice have never had an electricity bill in the 2 years that they've been there because their roof is producing all that power.
That's tearing me up. That's so good, isn't it? That's bloody. So they've. I mean, that's another dimension, isn't it? The wildlife cameras, so people can see it. We all like to. There's numerous wildlife cameras on terrestrial landscapes, but that is, well. I never liked
it's a beautiful story. Really, really nice story. And for Armani, it was far better the outcome for them by sponsoring something and putting on a really meaningful green roof that, could be enjoyed by so many, rather than trying to potentially just retrofit a small building in London for themselves. So, really good.
That's superb. Now, the one at Noah's Ark, that's a flat roof, or is that a pitched roof?
That's a flat roof. Yeah, flat roof. Yeah.
So it's not just flat roofs that you can you can green up, because I remember we were chatting previously about one with the lovely view of the Norfolk coast, Salthouse.
Salthouse, yeah, yeah, that's a fantastic project where a self build that a great chap's been doing up there, and we worked with him for quite a while on the design of it, and we worked with some Optigreen technical experts in Germany about pitch roof solutions. They're not very common in the UK, but this system actually allowed us to put a 47-degree pitched green roof on the garages of this self-built property overlooking the Norfolk coast. So
wow,
that was a real treat, but challenging. We've been installing green roofs for 12 years now, and we still get challenges. This technology is new to us as well. We know the concept. We've done pitch roofs before, but nothing this steep. And there's ways of working and times where we really pull our hair out, but we use the basic principles and our experience to make it work. So yeah, again, another really interesting project, and not huge in size, probably 80 square meters, but for me, it's not about the size of the roof. It's about, the challenges, how interesting it is, what benefits it's having. And, I was delighted when the client rang up to say that it had survived the 80-mile-an-hour wind that followed the week after us installing it. So, yeah, good news.
Excellent. But I wanted to raise that though, because again, it's just getting the message out there that it's just there are green solutions for all types of roofs on all types of pitched angles and flat roofs, pitch. It's there is a green solution for it. So
there is, and more so in London, where there's more and more requirements for storm water and 1 in 100 year storm events, that the water does not go off of the site. So basically that either means you build a huge attenuation tank underground, or you build your building stronger and create a blue roof where you're creating an extra layer underneath the green roof that can take all that water from a 1 in 100 year storm event and slowly release it off. So the key is it's not a permanent water tank. It's a method of controlling water flow, and that's becoming a lot more useful to developers and actually saves them a lot of money. The roof is going on.
Because that's interesting, because you're talking about a blue-green roof here, aren't you? So you're talking about the crates with the build up on top.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to see. I don't know if people have done a sort of, a cost benefit analysis or a comparison between what it costs to sink a tank underneath the building and all the groundworks and all the infrastructure, and then did a direct cost comparison with a blue-green roof. I'd love to see that data.
Well, there's talk. You try digging a tank in London. You can spend up to £500,000 or £1 million digging a hole to create this attenuation tank underground, or you build your building stronger and utilise your rooftop, and you get the benefits of the green roof as well. So that's the sort of comparison it is.
That's quite an easy comparison. I thought it'd be something more convoluted, but yeah, that's digging a blooming big hole. I suppose, it's the groundworks, it's it's the access, I guess it's everything. But
disrupting the surroundings as well. London undergrounds and all the utilities and everything that goes on. Whoa. How can you dodge all of those easily? You can't. So it's.
I suppose I don't know how many permits and consultant fees you'd be paying just to dig a big hole. But so that's the blue-green roof, and but it's quite interesting though when you have that blue-green roof and then you have the build up on top. I mean, what was so the water can be held up there, but it's only releasing it after a couple of hours, even that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to slow it down a lot, you know, possibly, you know, up to 48 hours before it comes off the rooftop. So
Wow.
it's really slowing it down. But then, you know, green roofs were the original blue roofs. They were doing that. This is just taking it to the next level for when we do get, you know, real heavy storm events. And we are, you know, we're planning for 100 years, you know, a 1 in 100 year storm event. We're not going to get that many of them, but we're ready for them, and the rooftops are designed to take that. Should we you know, get that storm come in? So.
Yeah. So, Chris, we've talked up to this point about green roofs and installation, the different types of green roofs, but I think it's probably a good time that you could dispel another myth about green roofs. That green roofs, I don't know, might need a bit of maintenance. So, do you want to just give us a bit of background on the maintenance involved with green roofs?
Sure, yeah. And I love the line, they're low maintenance and not no maintenance. That's key. And yeah, it's been knocking around for a long time, and people being informed that green roofs don't need any maintenance. They do their own thing. To an extent, they do, but they do need some maintenance. You know, we need to stop any woody weeds forming, you know, like buddleia and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that is a risk to the waterproofing if left. You know, and that can come in via bird droppings. That's not, you know, or wind. So for that reason, we need to be checking and maintaining roofs. You know, there's every gravel, you know, every roof has a gravel fire break around the outside.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that's vegetation free, because if it ever caught fire, which is very unusual, the gravel margin around the edge is to stop the flames getting to any of the upstands of the building. So really important that that's vegetation free, so that fire precaution is still working. And the growing medium, the substrate, is low in organic content to slow down, you know, the growing process. And so you don't have to be mowing it or strimming it every fortnight like your back garden. It's maintenance is probably twice a year on an extensive roof, so a sedum roof. Perhaps a little bit more with biodiverse roofs, but they do need maintenance. They're not no maintenance. So that's really key for everyone considering one, to know that, you know, we've got to be able to get up there, and we've got to be able to get up there safely to maintain it.
But let's just make that comparison. So you're getting up on green roofs. What is the average sort of maintenance contract? Once every month, few times a year? Because I guess a comparison between that and a terrestrial landscape where you're probably making 19, 20 to 23 visits per annum.
Yes, well, let's take a sedum extensive roof first. We'd do a maintenance visit in the spring. We'd put a slow release fertilizer on to give it a boost for the growing season.
Yeah.
And then our next visit wouldn't be until the autumn, where we'd remove any weeds, you know, any leaf droppings or stuff that's on there, clear the fire breaks, and then that would be it until the spring. With a biodiverse roof, we'd probably make one extra visit to cut the wildflowers down at the correct time, to make sure that they come back the next year and reseed. So yeah, I mean, we're talking 2 or 3 visits a year for the extensive and biodiverse roofs. If you've got an intensive roof, basically a roof garden, then you're going back to your sort of 19 scheduled visits a year, potentially, depending on what you've got on there.
Yeah. But it's really important just to stay on that point, because, you know, if you're a sort of a landowner and you've got to consider ongoing maintenance, it's a no-brainer. You know, again, you can, for example, you talk about, using the case study as IKEA. You know, they've got their green space on their roof with a reduced maintenance input, reduced maintenance cost, and I don't think that can be overlooked, really. It's just it really is. But again, like you said, it's down to the sort of the substrate underneath, because it's not massive, it's not as rich in nutrients as sort of a terrestrial garden, then the growth isn't as vigorous as it would be, and therefore, you know, you have to maintain it.
But, you know, say the green roof wasn't there, Daniel, you've got to, as a building owner, you need to go up there twice a year anyway to check that the water outlets are clear. So we can do that when we do the green roof visits, you know, and you're ticking all the boxes you need to. So it's not a huge extra additional cost, because you need to be going up and checking that the roof isn't flooding or ponding because of debris within the rainwater outlets. So.
So then you guys are going up there, but you know, you've obviously been in the industry for the last 12 years. Could you give your kind of overview on, you know, the industry, there's perhaps the skills gap in the industry, you know, where's the industry going, and, you know, have we got the people out there to be maintaining this and to, you know, keep these green roofs as they should be?
Sure. I mean, you know, I love the green roof industry. I really like my colleagues and peers within it. There's some really legendary people, you know, amongst those, including John Little, Gary Grant, Dusty Gedge, you know, but you're not just colleagues anymore. You make friends with these people, and it doesn't feel like we're all in huge competition, you know, because there's so much work to go around and everyone's got their specialisms.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm vice president of GROW, the Green Roof Organisation, and we go to all the meetings and we laugh with one another. We laugh with our competitors, you know, and joke, but try and help each other and encourage each in standards, you know, which I never got that in the landscape industry. I didn't feel that people would help each other. It all felt like, you know, everyone was in huge competition against each other, and it was really cutthroat and just not a nice atmosphere like the green roof industry has. And I do hope that carries on. And but you're right, if the market's growing at 17.5% a year, we need people to be coming into the industry at the same rate to keep up with the amount of work. You know, and overnight, if all the cities and towns around the UK suddenly realise, well, we want to have green roofs, where's the skilled labour? You know, it's like Wales. They've put in massive commitments for green infrastructure, led by Gary Grant and Dusty Gedge. But the risk there is, who's going to do it? You know, and if my company were to install roofs in Wales, we're actually creating a huge carbon footprint going over there to do it.
Yeah.
Are we undoing all the good work we're doing? So a big drive for GROW is to create training opportunities, create training courses, you know, to get more people into it. We want to train more roofers to take it on as a new discipline for them.
Yeah.
We want to train landscape operatives to be working at heights. You know, there's obviously different considerations there. You're not working on the ground. You need to make sure there's edge protection. You're safely working at height. So there's new challenges for them. But, you know, for me, Daniel, it's like, this isn't a roofing discipline. This isn't a landscaping discipline. This is something in the middle, and it's its own specialism.
Yeah.
And you can come from either side and join, or you can come from anywhere else and join, but it is specific skills. It is specific, you know, you need to know about weight loading. You need to know that you're not going to collapse that roof by building it. You know, there's lots and lots of things to be aware of. You know, and you need to really have an appreciation for that waterproof layer, because if you puncture that, that's huge. You know, while you're doing an installation, because you were untrained, that's huge, massive costs going forward for that building owner to get that repaired. You know, and for you potentially, you know, with your own liability or professional indemnity. So training is hugely important within this.
Because it's, as you're talking, it's kind of a really exciting time, because I feel that, you know, there is that, like you say, there is that place in the middle where the hortics need to meet, you know, broadly speaking, the hortics need to meet the, you know, hortics landscapers need to meet the roofers You know, we're probably unsure about the roofs, they're unsure about the green bits. There is such an opportunity for meaningful collaboration. There really is. You know, I think that is it's an exciting time.
And there's also starting to be a sort of flip within the industry. So up to now, it's sort of been green roofers and landscapers working for the roofing contractor because it's in the roofing package.
Yeah.
As these green roofs and roof gardens get a lot more ambitious and exciting.
So like we were saying, Chris, it's a really exciting time for collaboration between different, you know, again, the roofers meeting the hortics and the hortics meeting, meeting the roofing industry.
Definitely, Danny. I think there's need of the skills from both sides. And sort of up to now, it's landscapers and green roof contractors have been working for the roofing contractor because it falls within their package. But, you know, now as sort of architects get more ambitious and want to see more, you know, interesting, intensive roofs on top of developments, it's like the roofing waterproof package could be worth 200,000, yet the landscaping package could be worth 1 million. So the roofing companies don't want to take on all that risk of something they don't know about. So there's potential now that it flips around and it's actually the landscape contractors have the package and bring in the waterproofers as one of their contractors rather than the other way around, you know, as the values flip, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting. Yeah, and you're seeing a lot more of that within, obviously with yourselves, but you see a lot of that flip happening in this industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you know, as more interesting schemes come about, it's becoming apparent that they're worth a hell of a lot more money than the actual roof works itself. So.
Interesting. So going back to the training, so have you got a kind of a list of kind of what a green roof, you know, installer and green roof, you know, company should be having? So do you think there is like an awareness of health and safety, basic plant identification skills? I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. So I can talk about the sort of training suite. So in June we'll have the e-learning course that is it's about 3 hours of online learning, ideal for newcomers to the industry, people that have never really had any involvement in green roofs before. So it could be your developer, it could be your local council, it could be you as an individual that just wants to come and see what a green roof is about and learn in your own time. If you want to sort of take that further, you can then go on to a physical introductory course that will look at health and safety, it will look at structural considerations, it will look at the different types and benefits of green roofs in more depth. And then you will go on to do practical sessions if you want to become an installer, which the sort of day 2 session looks more at you buy a solar roof, it looks at plant ident, it looks at blue roofs as well as shaped and pitched roofs. So, you know, we're going to take it to the next level on that second day course. And then if you can achieve a CSCS card, a construction skills card in green roofing, but that would require you to collect a portfolio of evidence of you installing green roofs to then get your card at the end of it, you know, to show that you're a competent green roof installer.
So can we go back to that point or stick on that point? Because correct me if I'm wrong, at the moment the industry again is working on people having that CSCS card, but it doesn't necessarily cover them to work on a green roofs. Is that?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, how can I say this? You could potentially get onto a construction site if you've got a CSCS card. So I could take you on the roof potentially if you had a plumbing CSCS card, just because you've got a CSCS card.
Yeah.
But as you know, as safety is sort of ramped up, and you know, there's more of an onus on the developer and the main contractors to prove that the people doing the work are actually trained and skilled in their occupation.
Yeah.
So you will need, if you're installing a green roof, it will need to say on your card that you can install a green roof, or you're a competent installer to do that. You know, just because you're a chippy or a plumber doesn't mean you can suddenly say, well, I'm a green roofer. You know, you need to demonstrate that you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I think that's very important in some of the points we spoke about earlier. You know, that building these roofs, you've got the ability to collapse that roof if you overload it in one area, you know, during construction. So if you were a plumber or a chippy, why would you know about that? How would you know about that? So training is really crucial.
Yeah. I'm pausing because again, we've had this conversation previously. You know, it really is, you know, to have that training, to have that understanding about green roofs and load bearing. It always brings me back to our conversation about the green roof over in Latvia. And is it Latvia or Estonia? Or
Yeah, Latvia. Yeah.
yeah. And I'll put a link in the links below on the video, but it shows you've got to understand. You've got to understand about these things. You've got to understand about load bearing. You've got to understand about, where, when you're building these green roofs, how do you build them?
Sure. Yeah, you've got to have that appreciation. And unfortunately, in Latvia, there was a huge loss of life because it was an active supermarket, and they were building the green roof garden. And I understand the pressures. It's just get all the material up there. The crane costs a lot of money, but you can't just do that. You've got to spread the weight, because the roof is only designed to take the finished roof garden, not tons and tons of material stacked up in one area. It's not like on the ground. You could get lorries turn up and tip and go, 20 ton in one place, because it's the ground. This isn't the ground. This is the roof, and it's not that strong, so it's, it's huge. That really is huge. And that's not just on big commercial builds. That could be domestic dwellings as well. We've got to be really careful that these working at height is one of the biggest killers, to people actually working at height. But as with this as well, it's additional risk. So again, that really highlights the need for training.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for your time. Absolutely love this chat. So thank you very much. I guess the next thing is, where can people find out more about Bridgman and Bridgman? I'd love if you could direct us towards everything you've been talking about with Grow. So yes, if you just give us a sort of your ending credits.
Yeah, no, Daniel, it's really great to talk to you and enjoyable. And I would urge anyone that's wanting more information about green roofing, design, recommended manufacturers, contractors or suppliers, to get over to the Grow website. That's the Green Roof Organisation. Lots of great information there. The new code, the Grow code, is about to be launched on the 6th of June, which is World Green Roof Day. Also go to Lantra's website to look at training opportunities and the course path that you can go on. But for Bridgman and Bridgman, our website is gardensinthesky.co.uk, and you can see lots of our case studies, videos of installations we've done, and the history of our company. And just lots of great stuff that our team have done, and we are a big team that really love what we do, and I owe a lot to our people as well. So it's not just me.
Good stuff. Top man, Chris. Thanks for your time. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
Good stuff.